A double barrel says that quite loudly, and never utters a sound until it's too late to even hear it. "Well," said Betelgeuse, "ain't this cozy?" "Daddy," said Kitty Cat, groggily. She sat up, and like a true Betelgeuse, she made no move to cover her naked breasts. She sat there as proudly as if they were two prized puppies on her chest. "Don't you daddy me, little girl," said her father. "You think your mother striped you good. Just wait till I get done with you." "I was aiming on letting you watch me do your mama for beating you without my say, but I'll just get you both done at once, and you can howl and put salve on each other." "No, Daddy," she squealed. "Please." "Shut up. You sound like your mother begging." Jack lay back now, and though he was about to die, he had a smile on his face, and even a chuckle or two. Betelgeuse saw this, and became intrigued. "And just what are you laughing at, dead man?" Jack laughed. "You. I'm laughing at you." Betelgeuse waited for him to continue. "I love your daughter, Daddy," he said, knowing this would infuriate the judge. "We say our prayers and our marriage vows each night before we bang each other to bliss." The judge's face went ashen cold. "We like it a lot. Quite a little creature you have here, Judge. She's quite the woman." "I congratulate you on a job well done in Kitty Cat here." Kitty Cat was blushing from the top of her little head well down past her large pointed breasts. "Well," said the judge, "it was your last piece, cowpoker. I hope it was good." "Judge," said Jack, leaning back and crossing his arms behind his head, "it was fantastic. And I thank you, sir, for the best woman I ever had in my life. It's a privilege to die right now, as payment for her delights. I can truly feel that my life is ended in her arms anyway." He smiled large. "Fire away, Judge. Sorry about your tail, Kitty Cat, but it'll get better one of these days. Better move, or you might get brains all over you." She didn't move. "Shoot me, Daddy. Shoot me, too. I love him." She wasn't kidding. Betelgeuse noted this with some fear. What had these two discovered out here in this barn? They acted like they'd been smoking laudanum, though there was no smell of dope in here. Neither of them was scared, and neither of them cared either. He could have killed Jack Jacobs where he laid, and he could have ripped his girl out of Jack's arms easily enough. But no, this wasn't going to work. He couldn't even enjoy killing Jack now. "I know what's the matter with you," he nodded to Jack. "But what's your problem, Kitty Cat?" "What do you mean?" she cooed, kissing Jack on the mouth. Jack felt himself grow against the blanket, and he laughed. Kitty Cat liked it dangerous, and it didn't get any more dangerous than right now. "You stop that, daughter, or I'll—" "Or what, Daddy?" she said. "You're going to beat me? Well, you're going to do that anyway, so think of something else." She crawled under the blanket with Jack, both of them naked as jaybirds in the warmth of their straw bed. She actually joined with him there, much to Jack's delighted shock. She turned her head a bit to look at her daddy, and she said, "You just came into my bedroom, you rude fellow, and I think you can find your way back out again." Judge Betelgeuse couldn't move. He could barely breathe. "See," said Kitty Cat, "I don't live with you and Mommy any more. You can't beat me 'cause I ain't yours. I'm his. He's got me right now, under this blanket." His little girl was all grown up at that moment. She'd had a taste of manhood now, and she obviously liked it. And Jack, well, Jack would take care of her at least. They hadn't begged for their lives, and suddenly the judge realized there would be no living with Kitty if he did kill Jack. He didn't even want her back now. She was damaged goods. As he walked back outside, realizing that he had just walked away from Jack like that, His insides shuddered. They were stronger than him. By themselves, individually, he could have taken either one of them. Jack Jacobs lived in terror of Battlegos. So did his daughter. He could whip her and hang him separately, but together, joined at the waist like lovers, he was no match for either of them. Together he was afraid of them. Together they were his equal and more. Love had once again beaten the great self-indulgent Satan. He thought of his cowering, cringing wife waiting at home, and he smiled hatefully to himself. Now there was fear. As Judge Battlegos made his way later, much later, into the gates of his own ranch, he failed to notice 3 sets of paw prints meandering along the white fences, which kept the horses from wandering off. Paw prints in the mud of the ground. Paw prints belonging to Slobber, the wolf he had killed years ago. As his wife lay naked upstairs, fearing the return of her husband, she had the quirt all laid out for him. It was what he would expect, and she had to be ready. Once he had blackened her eye for not being ready. But the judge would not be coming into the house tonight at all. In the morning they would find him all over the front yard, parts hither and yon, strewn by some savage, vicious, otherworldly creature, a creature seeking revenge of some sort. Clive watched the whole thing, but would never tell it. Nobody would ever believe him. He himself didn't believe it. That old wolf was dead. What was he doing out there, on 3 legs, walking better than a wolf with 4? It was as if the judge had ripped himself apart in the front yard of his house. Demons, Clive would mutter, and take another swig of stolen whiskey. Yes, demons. But Clive couldn't help but notice the tracks in the snow. The tracks. The 3 paw-printed tracks where Slobber, the 3-legged wolf, maimed and killed by Battlegos, still roamed the night. He wouldn't really care either about a single paw still nailed to a tree from years ago, nor the demon that had been released from the dead wolf's body to roam and enter the evil people of the world. And a man named Satan by his friends and enemies was the perfect candidate for a little late-night possession. Slobber would finally get his revenge. Somewhere there was a God, and he had not been pleased with what he saw in the dishonest weights and measures of Judge Battlegos. So he had removed his divine protection from the man. Being a judge, he had such protection. Being pure evil, he had lost it. And Satan, the real Satan, had come by for a little visit. And the hot prayers of a naked wife lying beside a riding whip in an upstairs room would at last be answered. Jack and Kitty Cat were officially married once they got established in the farming community of Montana. The money that Sundown had given him was well spent, and they had all they could have hoped for together. They had 3 children, all girls, and Jack named them Sunshine, Chatty, and Kitty Cat, after his 3 favorite women in the whole world. Queen's Ride and Vengeance sired and bore a number of good stock for the ranch, and the place thrived. In fact, the Sundown Ranch would be known far and wide as the best place to buy good quality horses. The memory of the Sundown Bandit would be remembered in that farm, if nowhere else. August 1850. Dear Mary, I won't ever be back again, because I am the Sundown Bandit. I'm starting fresh elsewhere 'cause I made a promise to a sweet little girl I miss very much. But I can't come out your way again, 'cause I know I'll try and see her, and that'll probably get me killed. They know about the Sundown Bandit, and I ain't one to buy that they all think he's buried in that grave they say they put him in. Some know that I am a woman, and they know where to look for me around Bad Rock Canyon. I'm not going to endanger my little friend, nor even you any more. You've done your part for me. Thank you for that. Tell Jack I love him. Save this and think of me when you read it. I'll always mean it, and I'll always love you. I love you, Sunshine Jacobs. No one would have to tell Mary that. Wherever Sundown was right now, the bandit was dead. Dead and buried forever. She would read this letter ever so often. For years. Chatty Dawson did not stay in Bad Rock. She graduated from her school with honors, and she and Bandy Maynard moved in together back east, in Philadelphia. Bandy finally married Thomas Fortune, and she had invited Chatty to move in with them for a while. Bandy and Tom had a plan for inviting Chatty to live with them. Tom's brother was a bachelor living in Germany who would be coming home from time to time. The man, George Fortune, swore he would never marry. Bandy smiled at this, for she knew that if Chatty saw him and liked him, George was ground beef. Chatty would have him one way or the other. It would be just a matter of time. Bandy's husband was fabulously wealthy, and Bandy always shopped at the finest of stores. She had never held it against Chatty that she had gone to the Marlston Academy, while Bandy had had to settle for St. Reginald's. Bandy was a very nice lady in later years, and she and Chatty got along famously. Though from time to time Chatty would often sit out on the porch, overlooking the street, particularly at sundown, and she would think about the Sundown bandit, where she might have gone and what she might be doing. Even now, 3 years after the burial of the wrong man as the Sundown bandit, Chatty had to wonder what went with the real one. During these times, Bandy would bring her tea to drink and leave her to her own private thoughts. Sundown in the evening was Chatty's time to remember her girlhood and the first person she had ever truly loved by choice, the Sundown bandit. The preacher approached the old well alone this afternoon. He was very happy to have a day to himself for a change, a day without his beloved congregation hounding him, a day without his terribly prim and proper wife needing him for some function or other, a day without his children demanding that he leave his Bible study and come and play with them. His life, since he had married and taken up the cloth, had not really been his own. Looking ahead now, he saw the old well, the place he hadn't been in years. He recalled a time when he had been a loner, not asking or needing anything from anyone. A rogue male he had been for the first 34 years of his life. A rough man that his wife and children would not have known. A man who could very easily lift a gun and blow another man's life away for money. He stopped by the old well, and he smiled as he pulled up the old rope. The great heft of the box was coming next, and as he looked up to God, he said, "Lord, now this ain't what it looks like. I'm not putting my hand to the plow and turning back. I ain't Lot's wife, seeking Sodom in the flames." The box came up out of the well at last. "I ain't trying to find Egypt in this box, nor touch some twisted old Ark of the Covenant. Between ourselves," he started to open the box. "But God, I just gotta know." The lid came open, and he stared down into the emptiness and knew. His things were gone. The black Stetson, the manila riding coat, the blue bandana, the Colt 45, with which he had slain 20 men single-handedly in saloon brawls. In the bottom was a piece of paper instead. It read, "Dear Outlaw, I've thought about you quite a bit, sir. I've half hoped to meet you out here, to get to know your acquaintance. I found your stash, and, well, I was quite taken with your hardware. My daddy's one of your kind, and I guess I'll be one myself. Half of me hopes I never see you, but you'll either find this note in here, or you'll find your gear just like you left it. Depends on what day it is, I reckon. I ain't trying to rob from you, but I guess I'm tempting fate playing with your gear. Anyways, we share us a stash now, between us outlaws. That is, if you ain't already dead. So by now you know who I am, from wearing your stuff in them posters and all. So from one outlaw to another, here's mud in your eye. Love that six-shooter. The Sundown Bandit." He closed his eyes and shook his head. He had suspected as much. The boy had probably found all of his things and assumed it was an outlaw stash. Of course it was an outlaw stash. That's what his wife would have said. But this boy had probably tried on the things, and then suddenly he had been tempted beyond that which he was able, and the good preacher Simmons had created an outlaw just by abandoning his things out here. He swallowed hard. He felt like a latter-day Ananias from the Bible, who had held back part of the price and had been slain for doing so. Maybe the lad would have done differently if Preacher Simmons had put everything into the box, as he had agreed to do when he had abandoned his old life. Maybe the lad would have thought differently if he had found this to go with it. Preacher Simmons felt it might not be too late. When the boy comes back and hides his things here again, maybe he'll see it and know. Preacher Simmons pinned to the note and jammed against the bottom of the box the thing he should have put in here all along. "Come back, boy," he said. "Come back and get it all this time." He left the thing, the shiny piece of metal, just as he should have done the first time he left all of his gun-toting gear here from before. In the bottom of the box was the badge that read, "Sheriff, Iron Gulch Pass." He would no longer wear it under his preacher clothes. That part of his life, and the killing of men, those 20 men he had slain in barroom brawls, men just like the Sundown Bandit, had he ever crossed his path. Killing of men for money, for a bounty, for a paycheck, was at last now completely behind him. Chatty Dawson did meet and set her cap for George Fortune, that long-haired German-speaking painter from Munich. She caught him, too, and she married him. He moved back to the United States and settled down with Chatty, not too far from the house of his brother Thomas. His paintings were selling well, and with Thomas as a brother-in-law, they never lacked for anything, not even good company. It was about the time that they were thinking on getting married that a strange incident occurred. Chatty and Bandy always shopped at extravagant places, and always had plenty of money. When the new 2nd Street area had opened up as the place to go boutique shopping, Chatty was about to be married to her painter fellow. She precociously referred to him as her painter fellow. He was Thomas's brother, though, and that made him golden. Also, she was excited by his strangeness and his uncanny resemblance to the Sundown Bandit. They could have been twins, except he was a guy. Finally. One of the new shops on New 2nd Street opened up pretty early on. It was a place called Lady Chatterley's. Bandy had wanted to take Chatty there since she had seen the sign go up. There had been a number of gorgeous wedding dresses in the windows. "Oh, Chatty," Bandy had cooed, "you must see this place. It is simply wonderful." "What's it called again?" Chatty had asked her. "It's your name, silly. Lady Chatterley's. It's made for you. There's this new gown in the window that I would simply die for. Oh, it's all lace and everything up to here. There's a bodice that simply clings to your bosoms like a gentle embrace. You must see it." Little Chatty's mouth had watered. "Really?" she said. "Let's go then. I gotta see this." They had taken one of their 3 carriages down to the row of shops on New 2nd Street. They were all there in a row, brand-new shops with great windows and lovely come-hither displays. Chatty had not been down here since New 2nd Street had been completed. In the high-rent district, as they called it, outside of the area where they kept the Belle in Philadelphia. New 2nd Street looked like a permanent carnival for women only. Chatty was enthralled with all of the places she saw here. Lady Dane's boutique, Miss Ryder Fashions, and of course the one that Bandy had told her about, Lady Chatterley's Western Wear and Eastern Fashions. "See," said Bandy, "it says Western as well, just like us. We're Western from out that way. And there it is, your very own wedding dress, a perfect gown for you." Chatty looked and her eyes grew very wide. The gown was not only perfect, it had been made for her. Chatty was beginning to get an uneasy feeling as she got out of the carriage and went over to inspect the gown. The mannequin was wearing a small fit dress, with accentuated breast supports laced in strands of the most delicately veiled stitch she had ever seen. The whole thrust of the gown was for the bosom, and under the obvious lifts of the breasts there descended a tapered flat-tummy corset of the finest whalebone. This terminated just shy of the hips and flared out, like all women's dresses did in those days, to accommodate the great hoops that were in fashion. The strangest part of the whole shebang was the shoes, however. They were solid white leather boots, and had just a hint of Western styling, though there was no design tooled in the leather at all. They were the daintiest things she had ever seen. The name of the dress startled her. It read, "Flagship Gown for the Chatterley Collection, designed by Chateau du Lac, Paris." The name of the dress was The Chatty. No, it couldn't be. Her heart fluttered a little. "Come on," said Bandy, "let's go inside." Bandy hadn't read the name on the gown yet, but that would come later. Chatty was just dying to try it on, and she was too busy reading the gown and staring at the dress to see the most obvious detail in the mannequin's features. Had Chatty seen it, she would have known the features could have only been modeled after her own. "Good day, ladies," said a nice man from behind the counter. "How may we help you? My friend here wants to try on that gown." "I didn't say that." "How much is it?" said Bandy. "We'll take it, whatever it is. Oh, it is simply precious. She must have it." "Madam," said the man, "that's the Chatty. It is very dear indeed." Bandy swelled up to her full 5-foot-high frame, and said, "Well, this is the Chatty as well, my good man, and she also is very dear. Now, if we may try on that gown." "I'm afraid what you ask is quite impossible. That gown has to be ordered and fit before it can be worn. That's how special it is." "Are you blind?" he said. "Will you look at this woman? She was made for that dress. She could model in your window. She must have it." Bandy had lost her cool over a dress. Chatty looked back at the gown to see what the fuss was. "Bandy," said Chatty, "step over here for a minute, will you please?" "I know my rights," said Bandy. "You have a dress in your display that has got her name on it, and we want it. Now cough it up." "Madam, I shall have to order it for you." Chatty had grabbed Bandy away from the man and dragged her over to the window. "Are you listening to me?" she said, trying not to grin. Their noses were about to touch. "Yes," said Bandy. "Who is getting married here, Bands? Me or you?" "You." "And who is going to pick the dress out, me or you?" "You," said Bandy. And who is going across my knee if she doesn't shut up about the dress? I am, moaned Bandy. I'm sorry, Chats. I didn't think. I'm just so happy for you, and that dress is so gorgeous. Now then, we are going to go over and order the dress like we have good sense, aren't we? She spun Bandy around and popped her lightly on the behind, propelling her back towards the man and his order book. He was already filling it out for them. The lecture and the kiss pop on the bottom always made Bandy giggle, because every so often Chatty would have to calm Bandy down when they went shopping. Bandy was one of the most brutally intense shoppers that Chatty had ever seen, and she would rip a purchase off a mannequin to get it for her own. The words, "Order it," always made Bandy see flaming blood red. "If it's late for your wedding, don't yell at me," whispered Bandy, back over her shoulder, as Chatty sweetly shoved her towards the man. "We don't even have a firm date yet, Bands," said Chatty in return. "How can I show up even at all without a dress? Relax. It will be here in time. Now smile." "Your wedding," said Bandy, as they approached the man again. Bandy put her handbag on the counter and sighed. "All right, mister. Chatty says to order it, but you can dispense with her measurements. She's the size of the little creature in the window. If I didn't know any better, I'd swear she was the girl in the glass." Chatty looked at the mannequin again, and this time she saw something else, something that scared her. The mannequin was her. Not like she was so much now, maybe, but as she had been. Sure, the breasts were bigger than they had been, but the face and the hair was as she used to wear her hair. If the breasts hadn't been so large and the butt so womanly perfect, it would have been Chatty Dawson as a 14-year-old girl jumping off a water tower onto the back of the Sundown Bandit. Now, who had seen her completely naked before? Who had measured her mentally with eyes and fingers to know how to make her like that? Who had that clear of a memory of face to have recreated it for her on a doll? She didn't know, but the thing was beginning to scare her. It was exactly as Chatty used to look as a young girl. This doll was a 14-year-old with breasts going on 19, just like Chatty here, now. Just like her. This gown seemed to accentuate the perk of her firm breasts perfectly, just as they would be if she was bathing naked in an icy mountain river stream. This was too much. "Madam," said the man, addressing Chatty directly, "if we may see you over here, we have to get your sizes." They took a few minutes to get them all, and as Chatty stood there waiting for the man to finish, he kept looking nervously at the gown in the window. Each and every measurement he took was tit for tat with the mannequin. Bandy saw this and smiled triumphantly. The gown would fit Chatty Dawson perfectly. The man shook his head and sighed. "Excuse me, ladies, I have to ask my employer a question concerning your purchase." "Oh, take your time," Bandy called after him. She clapped her hands together and turned to hug Chatty close. Her embrace was quite powerful. "Ha!" she squealed. "He's going to get his boss to approve the one in the glass. We're going to get it today. I could pee myself, I'm so happy." The man returned some minutes later with a tall, powerful-looking woman. She was dressed in a black outfit, western-cut boots, sort of like the ones in the window, only in black. The house special, Chatty thought, as the tall woman walked out to shake Chatty's hand. "How do you do?" said the woman, her rich voice rolling off her like honey. "I am the owner of this shop." "I'm sorry," began Chatty. I am just going to order that dress in the window." Bandy cowered near Chatty for safety. The woman was very impressive, though she was nice. If she wanted to, however, she could command the presence of anyone with just a word. She was definitely the owner. "That dress," said the woman, "was made for a woman from long ago. That dress is the most special dress I have ever had made." "You had it made?" asked Bandy. The woman shushed her with a look, but the look was friendly. It was just that the woman had such power about her. She could get your attention with a glance. "Yes, it was made for someone," said the woman, "though she never wore it." They were all silent as they reflected on the possible meaning for this. The woman finally smiled and spoke again. "Charles here tells me that you can wear Chatty's dress," asked the woman, her eyes fixed against Chatty's face in a most searching manner. Though something might be a little bit strange about a woman walking into her store like this, with perfect sizes for a special-made dress. "I believe so," said Chatty, not wanting to offend her. "I think I can wear it." The woman looked longingly at the mannequin and sighed. "Do you know that that is an original piece? There's no way to order it. It's the only one like it in the world. You see, it was made for the mannequin." She looked back at Chatty seriously. "It's the only dress of its kind that will ever be made. Charles didn't tell you that. The dress cannot be ordered, for it's really not for sale. It's a display." "I'm sorry," said Chatty. "I didn't mean to offend you. I was only going to make a purchase. We'll be leaving now." The woman looked at her and stopped her dead with the icy blue stare. Chatty felt a thrill go through her from those eyes, and something within her stirred deeply. "No," said the woman. "I think it's time that little Chatty lost her dress. She's worn it long enough." This was freaking Chatty out. The woman was acting like the mannequin was real, or something. Maybe a long-lost daughter, waxed from memory and then made into a mannequin. Some terrible memory like that, saved forever in the window of the woman's store. Like that woman from England who had the wax workplace. Madame Tussaud, something like her. Maybe she had made the thing for her to cherish always. "I'm not going to take her dress," said Chatty. "I'm not going to do that. Bandy, let's go." But no one moved in the room. The woman looked over at Chatty and smiled. "Charles," she said, "tells me your name is Chatty also. Well, since that is true, I shall say this to you, miss. If you can wear Chatty's dress, the Chatty in the window, I'll give it to you." Chatty's eyes grew wide. "I'm serious," said the woman. "Charles, bring the dress. If she fits it, it's hers." "Yes, ma'am," said Charles, not questioning a thing that she ordered him to do. Charles took the dress, mannequin and all, back to the woman's office, and he put it in a room before coming back out again. "Fine," said the woman, still staring at Chatty Dawson. "Thank you, Charles. That will be all." The man went back to minding the front counter and doing some undetermined paperwork. Chatty watched him go as the woman walked over to Bandy. She smiled at her and said, "Will you excuse me and your friend here? We must go fit the dress, and we'll need your objective opinion." "Sure thing," said Bandy. "Don't mind me. I'll just look around till you're ready." The woman took Chatty by the hand and led her into the office like a mother does her naughty little girl. But it wasn't like that somehow. Not at all. She got back into the plush office, and the woman closed the door behind them as Chatty turned to face her. The woman was smiling at her. Chatty still didn't understand it. She walked over to Chatty, and she put her hand lightly on the girl's face. Chatty reached up and touched her hand in kind. "God, you're so much like her," said the woman, staring back at the Chatty mannequin. "So much as I remember you." "What do you mean?" said Chatty. The woman's eyes misted over, and she began crying. Her pretty face was wet as she looked up. "Let me see," she said. "How does it go? Oh, yes. Love is for little butterflies like us. Chatty Dawson's mouth fell open. No, it wasn't so. This woman, no. The only other person in the world who knew those sacred lines. The Sundown Bandit. It's me, Chatty, she said, pointing to the mannequin. And that, dear girl, is you. You're Sundown, said Chatty, shocked. Now she could see her. Why couldn't she recognize her earlier? Of course. The hair was different, the makeup. But it was her. Sundown, the pretty former bandit, shushed her with a raised finger to her lips and a smile in her pretty icy blue eyes. They embraced for the longest time, Chatty crying her eyes out. God, I have missed you so bad, said Sundown. I have cried and missed you these last few years, child. How in the world are you? I'm fine now, said Chatty, burying her face in Sundown's neck. I'm fine. Sugarfoot, said Sundown at last. That gown was made for you at great expense. The likeness cost even more, but I had to have it done. Do you know how many women fought to own that dress? Do you know how many fights I've had to keep it? But I fought for you in effigy. That was your dress on that figure of yourself, and I enjoyed fighting every moment to keep it off someone who didn't deserve it. I know they hanged the Sundown Bandit in effigy several times and in several towns after my so-called death. I know the power of the effigy likeness, Chatty. I had that one made in Paris, France, when I was on the run. It's me, said Chatty. It's too perfectly me. I don't look that good. Yes, well, after seeing several nice likenesses of the Sundown Bandit burned upon the end of a rope, I got the idea for it. Now I could have you forever, and I could look at you every day. Until today, when I saw you again. You came in here to claim your own, didn't you? Asked the bandit. Yes, I did, said Chatty. Well, come on, said Sundown. The mannequin here is the finest French work, and the English wax worker is a genius, isn't she? Chatty agreed with her. It was almost scary. You mean you had the mannequin made in France and the waxing done in England? Yes, said Sundown. The dress is an original by Dulac. I had it made to capture the youthful vigor of a 14-year-old girl with a woman's attributes. I had figured you would develop like this. Seems I was right. Now try it on. Sundown was more excited about seeing Chatty in the dress than Bandy had been. It fit her perfectly. Chatty pulled the boots on with Sundown's help, as Sundown explained the rest of what she had done since she had seen her the last time. Chatty, I want to apologize for leaving you in Iron Gulch Pass. I walked outside to water the horses and ran right into Betelgeuse and Pogues. Right into them. What happened? Asked Chatty. I walked right by them. I walked right by them, Colt drawn and ready to drop them both. They were so scared neither one of them moved a muscle. Naw, said Chatty. Get out. Oh yes, they were scared to death of me, even dressed as a woman. Sundown told Chatty to stand up while she finished fitting her. Strange, said Chatty. Last time I saw you, I was dressing you. And now I'm dressing you, said Sundown. Well, it's because of you that I am doing this today. When I got by the two lawmen, I got old Frater saddled up and rode like the wind to the north. They sicked the 7th on me, Chatty. The whole 7th Cavalry, can you believe it? I know, said Chatty. They brought your body into Bad Rock for me and Mama to identify. You can't be serious, said Sundown. Yes, I am, said Chatty. Fortunately, it wasn't me. It was some guy in a wig, said Chatty, noticing Sunshine's new reddish-brown dye job. No wonder she didn't recognize her. She'd dyed her hair. Sundown stood up and put her hand up to wipe her brow. She was stunningly beautiful. "You can never tell your friend about us," said Sundown. "About me. I can never be known for who I was." "I swear," said Chatty. "Where is Frater?" "I mailed him back to the Batelgus farm," said Sundown. "I packed him on board a freight train and kissed him goodbye. He's home at last. Too many people might recognize him, even without all the old whitewash I used to put over him. I got the signature back from Mrs. Batelgus, who had signed for the horse. It came back to my unlisted postal box." "Weren't you scared of getting caught?" asked Chatty, "sending him home like that?" "Yes," said Sundown, "but he was worth it. The Batelgus stables are the best in the world. He would be happier there than here. He had saved my butt before, and I owed him his declining years in his own pasture. Well, I rode away and wrote Grandma and my friend out near River's End. I disappeared after that. I went to Europe for a while and enrolled in, of all things, a real finishing school. I studied cosmetology and dress design. Your Chatty dress was designed for you, and it was my finest work. I learned all of the social graces and opened a shop in France. I did you proud, didn't I? Do you know I speak fluent French?" "You did me more than proud, Sundown. It's harder to be a lady than it is an outlaw, but you are even a better lady than you ever were an outlaw." Sundown actually blushed at that. The blush crept up into her auburn locks. "Merci beaucoup, jeune fille," said Sundown. "Merci." "I just moved here," said Sundown, "when I heard that New Second Street was going to be the place to be if you owned a boutique. The idea for this shop I got from you, so I figured that I ought to name it after you. Lady Chatterley. That's you, and this was you in the window, until just now." Chatty looked at the doll image of herself inside. It was a stunning piece. Sundown looked at her seriously and said, "I missed you something fierce, Sugarfoot. Well, I've sat out on Bandy's front porch every night shedding a tear or two for you, Sundown. I mean Sunshine. You do go by that now, don't you?" "Yes, I do, but in private," said Sundown, "you can call me Sundown. You and me, we go way back, don't we?" "Yes," said Chatty, "we do that, indeed." Chatty and Sundown cried together for some minutes. There was no reason for it, they just did it. It felt good after so long. The door was locked and they stood there together, crying and feeling really good about it. Finally Sundown wiped Chatty's eyes with her gloved hand. Only this time the glove was an expensive purple and black trimmed affair, and not an old leather black cowpoke thing that smelled of vile sweat and filthy dirt. Sundown wore a nice, terribly expensive French cologne that Chatty was enjoying very much. "How do I look?" asked Chatty, after she had dried her eyes and stood up straight. She twirled in the dress for Sundown and smiled her prettiest smile at the former bandit. "You look gorgeous, Chatty," said Sundown. "Come on, we better go show Bandy, if that's her name, before she gets concerned." "Thank you, Sundown," said Chatty, kissing the woman on the cheek. "Thank you for the nice dress, and the doll you made of me, and for everything. I think you taught me as much as I taught you." "Don't bet on that," laughed Sundown, rubbing noses with the blushing new bride-to-be in her wedding dress. "Without you, Chatty Dawson, I'd still be jumping trains for a living." They shared a laugh, and then they walked out the door, leaving the mannequin in the room, wearing, of all things, a T-shirt and a small bra, just like Chatty had worn the last time the Sundown Bandit had seen her. The mannequin stared after the two women, long after they left the room. The slight smile on the mannequin's face did not change. despite the fact that it no longer wore the gorgeous Chatty Dawson dress. It seemed to know that Chatty now had it on herself, just as it should have been, and just as it was meant to be. A week after Chatty Dawson's wedding to George Fortune, a stranger walked into the Lady Chatterley boutique on New 2nd Street. As Sunshine Jacobs was working the storefront, so Charles could slip out for a bite of lunch, she noticed the woman right away. She was a buxom lady, well-dressed, and obviously quite wealthy. She walked up and asked Sunshine if she could see a handbag and a dress ensemble. "That's our latest fashion," said Sunshine Jacobs. "It's called the Sundown series because of the colors in the fabric. It's very popular right now over in Europe. All of the ladies have them." The woman looked at Sunshine, and their eyes met and locked tightly. Sunshine felt the breath go out of her as the woman drank her stare into her eyes deeply. Sunshine wanted to blink, but she didn't dare. "Sundown," said the woman. "Is that a fact now?" And then she giggled. That same giggle, that exact same watery giggle as before. Suddenly Sunshine knew who this was. Virginia Maino sniffed and selected the large size ensemble from the rack. She didn't bother to try it on or anything. She just walked up to the counter and she laid it out to purchase it. "I'll take it then," she smiled at the lady. "Sundown." Sunshine's eyes got really big when she said that. She looked at the woman in fear. "Oh, that's the name of it, isn't it?" said Virginia Maino quickly. "Sundown." Sunshine nodded up and down, slowly, and finished ringing up the order for her. She had her boxed and ready to go in no time at all. "Will that be all?" she asked Virginia, as Virginia handed her cash for the expensive purchase. Their eyes met again, and Sundown the Bandit, way deep inside of Sunshine Jacobs, trembled in ancient fear. The heat from the woman's stare was just as hot as it had been the day that the woman had been a whore, lying on top of her in Morgan's Bow, lying naked on top of her quarry, the Sundown Bandit, after Sundown had just robbed the Capital and County's bank. "Yes," said the lady, "I think so." Their eyes were still locked together as Sunshine handed the woman the package as easily as she had handed her all that money so long ago, the money that had bought this woman out of whoredom and made her into a decent lady. Suddenly, just for a moment, they weren't two fine, respectable ladies of the city. As their eyes burned into each other, they once again, for just an instant, became whore and bandit. Once more they were whore and bandit. But just for an instant. The whore was naked and the bandit was filthy and dressed like a man. They were lying together on a bed, and they had the local lawmen absolutely buffaloed when they had entered the room. They had even had each other buffaloed. They knew this now. Sunshine hadn't understood it then, but Virginia had known all along, really, that the Sundown Bandit was a woman, even before the money. Sundown had thought the whore didn't know about her being a woman, but now, as her eyes locked, she knew that Virginia had known it all along, and was just pretending about the homosexual stuff and how Sundown didn't like women. You can't hide breasts from a woman, after all. Sunshine thought of Chatty Dawson and their ride across the prairie. Nope, breasts were always a dead giveaway. and the whore had been absolutely stupefied when the bandit had given her all that money for a sex act she didn't want and couldn't use. The whore would have done the bandit for free had he been a man, and yet the woman bandit had paid her money for nothing, except, of course, her escape and her life. Now the whore understood why. For an instant the whore and the bandit looked at each other, and then it all went back into the mists of time again. Suddenly they were once again two very respectable women in a store, one purchasing goods and service from the other. And apparently that was all there was to it now, as the Sundown bandit was infinitely relieved to discover. Outside the sun had come out from behind the clouds, and it poured forth like the light of heaven and forgiveness itself. As the woman turned to go, Sunshine spoke once more to her as she left. "Thank you," said Sunshine, meaning every word of it, more than the lady would ever know. Virginia turned back to her again, and she placed her white-gloved hand upon Sunshine's purple and black one, squeezing her fingers tightly. "No," said the woman. "Thank you." And then she turned to go. Dear Daddy, it was good to see you last week, you and Mr. Daggett. Since your last visit to Philadelphia, I got to thinking that maybe Mr. Daggett deserved to see me in a dress. After all, he always wanted to, so badly. I also wanted to thank you for never mentioning the fact that your daughter was the Sundown bandit. Thank you for not being mad at me for not telling you when I was doing it. I'm glad Aunt Grandma Mary told you about it. She wrote me later and said she'd told you. And, like us never mentioning your old gang, you were loyal to me and my secret as well. Thank you, Daddy. I love you. Your daughter, Sunshine Jacobs. P.S. See you Christmas. And bring Jake if you want to. The end.